want you to know what it feels like to keep all of this pain so concealed. Like I want out of this plane, I told my psych, you don't need to, you don't need to. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. I'm a zero summation, lost in translation. Here's my resignation, from this life I'm not staying. My whole life's a passing fad. You'll remember the times we had, the times we had, yeah. All these pleasures my brain can't have, I want out, so please don't be sad. Give it up, cause I'm getting out. Don't be sad, you could let it out. All the shit I'm forgetting now. My whole life I've been checking out. All I said, you could send it out. Light it up, now I'm headed out. This is the end of my part now. We will be never apart, no. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. Don't leave, I need you with me. Don't die, I need you alive. Don't go, don't leave me alone. You said, yeah. My entire life feels like one big mistake, and all these pills inhibit re-uptake. I can't arrive at any reason to wait. Take it one at a time, only take it one night at a time. And I don't care, cause I don't give, I take from this world so superficial and fake. In all your joys, I simply cannot relate. Take it one at a time, only take it one night at a time. I say goodbye, it's getting late now. Please don't cry, you'll know I made it out. Say goodbye before I fade out, before I fade out, before I fade out. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. I'm a zero summation, lost in translation. Here's my resignation, from this life I'm not staying. My whole life's a passing fad. You'll remember the times we had, times we had, yeah. Let it out, all the shit I'm forgetting now. My whole life I've been checking out. All I said, you can send it out. Light it up, now I'm headed out.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the zoo. I'm the Rusty Panda, and I am here for you. Today we've got Saxton in the hizzle.
How you doing?
Woot woot. Hi, everybody. So yeah, for those of you who don't know what Wiki Wednesday is, it's a show where we go ahead and take a streamer, ask them 15 things they like, 5 things they don't. We go down the Wikipedia rabbit hole, learning new things about topics and new things about ourselves, new things about the streamer. So hopefully you can buckle down and get ready to go. Saxon, how are you feeling today?
Good.
Good.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. It's been a crazy day, but I'm glad that I'm here now with you. I've been looking forward to this all day, so all
Yeah, same
all
here.
all week. Sorry, I had to postpone on you, but all week.
Oh,
And so I'm just happy you're here. So the first thing that I put up on the screen, there we go, is my mouse, is cat. It was on your list, and I mean, it had to be the first thing that I put up. I try to find something that's like really represents a streamer, and I felt like this right here was gonna be it. So tell me about cats. I mean, tell me did you start with cats when you were younger? Did you just grow into loving them? Tell me about them.
yeah. I've always loved cats. And I had a cat growing up named Leo. And had cats, into my 20s. And then I moved to Hawaii when I was 30. And the cat stayed at the house where I was living. And ultimately the people who ended up staying at my house ended up adopting Nadia, which was worked out really well. But one of the reasons I didn't bring the cat with me to Hawaii is because Hawaii has a feline overpopulation problem.
Right.
And so what has happened later in life is I started cat sitting a ton. And so for a lot of, I mean, I was already cat sitting off and on in where I was living in Minnesota, and I would also even fly to some places and cat sit people's cats while they were had their own vacations. But I've been cat sitting off and on ever since, and then for the last 2 3 years, I've been cat sitting as a form of my housing and traveling around North America and hanging out with different cats, dealing with different cats' personalities, different habits, different dietary needs, different cat type relationships. And so my life has progressively been more and more involved with um, cats, especially today.
Is there like one cat that stands out in your mind that you were like, man, that was a crazy cat? Like that pushed my limits. That was a crazy cat.
So that's a great question. There's a, I mean, I don't know if there's a number one answer, but I'll share a story about Buster in New Jersey. I stayed at a house in New Jersey, um, and it was a nice house in a historic area. You know, I had the whole place to myself, and I had to work with Buster the cat, who was 19. And when I got there, I started learning a little bit more of the nuance of Buster, it being kind of an angry, just didn't like any changes, didn't like anything disruptive, and like would even like hiss at other people. And I'm usually pretty good with cats who, um, are abrasive at first. But anyway, the homeowners who live there, their daughter, who was about my age, adult daughter, came to pick him up and drive him to the airport. And the daughter was just like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much for taking care of Buster." Because the last time I tried to take care of Buster, like he swatted at me and I dislocated my shoulder. And I'm like, okay. And then apparently the other daughter of the couple refused to work with Buster because they brought Buster to their home once and he peed all over their furniture.
Mm.
And
Yep.
so I'm like, oh boy, so I get to live with this cat for the next 2 months.
Oh my gosh, 2 months.
And it actually worked out really well. Like we got along, we figured things out. Like I could figure out his nuance, and I even was able to get him on a leash, and we would go out on walks in the backyard.
Yeah.
Anyway, I after I left that home in New Jersey, I went to the next city that I was going to, which was in Quebec, and the homeowner sent me an email a few days later, and at the end of it, they showed a picture of Buster looking out the window to the door, waiting for me to come home. And
Mm.
I was like in Quebec City, like trying to hold.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So so yeah, it's I've been very lucky and very privileged to be able to hang out with a wide variety of cats, including some of the ones that were difficult.
Yeah. And so do you post ads on like Craigslist? Like how do you get these gigs of sitting cats?
For the most part, I use a service called Trusted House Sitters. And it's a service where you pay money up front and you pay money yearly to be on the service because they do like a background check on you and they have a profile
Right.
that people can search and leave reviews on and such. Um, they also provide some insurances, and it ends up being like a pairing service where I don't pay to be at somebody's house and use their utilities and everything else, and I don't and vice versa. There's no payment exchange between me and the people who I'm taking care of their home for. Um, excuse me. Um, and it actually works out really well because end up getting places that, like, if I think about like how much would it be for somebody to pay for somebody to live in their home and take care of their cat, in Boston, for example, or
Mhm.
in San Francisco, for example, or Seattle or Portland, Oregon.
Right.
Um, and like, how much is that? And then from my perspective, how much would it be for me to Airbnb in a place for a month?
Mm.
Right.
Mhm.
And so it kind of balances out. Um, there's some situations where it doesn't balance out, and sometimes that's in my benefit. Like sometimes I'll stay in like $3 million homes, and
Wow.
but sometimes I'll be staying in a place that's like a notch up from a dorm room, but
Yeah.
also in a good location. But
Yeah.
um, so overall, I've made it work out pretty well for me.
Well, that's good. So, is it just for the love of it, or does the site pay you?
Um, I use it as my housing.
Okay.
So imagine if you weren't paying rent or paying a
Yeah.
mortgage.
That's pretty cool. That's a
I mean,
good idea.
it's and not paying for any utilities.
Yeah. And being
Um,
around cats.
yeah. So, and on the flip side, there's the responsibility of taking care of somebody else's cat, which
Mhm.
limits. So there's a lot of people. It's like, oh, you're living this great life, like you're able to travel the world and you're able to do all this kind of stuff. But on the flip side, I'm bound to a place. So if I'm in Belmont, Massachusetts, I can't just like go off to Portland, Maine for 3 days.
Right.
I can't just like go down to New York for a couple days. Like I have to be there. And so I've had to build in vacation times, so
Right.
to speak, to allow myself some flexibility. And then I'm paying like weekly rates at places.
Wow. That's so cool, though. I mean, that's really a lifestyle that I could totally get down with because I love to travel and I love cats. So I have three, by the way.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Ruby, Crystal, and Keiko.
Cool.
And they are very interesting cats.
Interesting.
Yes.
What, like,
So, for instance, Ruby has licked her belly and her sides completely bald. So she's got a
mm-hmm,
bald belly and all that stuff. And we have her on like antihistamines. I think it is. Galvos can confirm, but it basically to try to stop the itching. But like
mm-hmm,
she just licks her stomach bald, and Crystal, she is like my cat. Like she suffocates me when I sleep, like butt on face. And then Keiko is more of Galvos's cat, but Keiko will dip her paw in water and drink it that way instead of actually just drinking the water. So like she
love it.
dips her paw in and it's dirty and the other cats are like, "What the hell? Like this is gross. I don't want to drink this." So we have to replace the water very often. But they all have their own quirks and everything like that, and they get along good for the most part. Ruby's the disturber. But yeah, those are my cats.
Cool. They
Yeah.
sound like fun. Yeah, I hopped into your Instagram a couple of days ago, I think, and yeah, I definitely hit like on a number of your cat photos.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think I saw that and I was like, "Oh, he must be checking out the the Instagram." Which is
Yep.
perfect cuz the I love posting pictures of my cats. I mean, who doesn't when they've got fantastic animals, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I've actually had to put a disclaimer on my Instagram page. It says along the lines of I hit like on cat photos because if somebody goes and looks at their notifications, like who is the Saxton guy who like hit like on 15 of my photos?
uh-huh.
That and then like once they realize like no, I just like your cat, then it's like oh then it's cool because they probably like their cat too, but like um I also don't want to come off as a creep and like just be like completely random
Right.
like
No.
why is this guy doing this? And it's
No.
just yeah, I'll like I'll like your cat photos.
Aw. I appreciate that.
And
Welcome
I
on
like cat
in.
emotes too. Look at that.
And we were talking about house sitting, so I wanted to pop it up. So do you house sit for just like without animals, or is animals like your primary thing?
I specialize with cats.
Okay.
If I could do house sitting gigs where there's no animals to take care of,
Mhm.
um, which is not often, but
Mhm.
those situations are amazing because I'm getting a that's I mean that's a big benefit, like living
Right.
somewhere and um
Watering plants.
yeah, and some places don't have plants.
Okay.
Like the place where I am right now, there are a number of plants. There's outdoor plants. There's orchids, which you may know require some special kinds of attention sometimes.
Right.
Um, but there are people on this platform. I was talking about trusted house sitters before that do dogs, and dogs are work.
Yeah.
Like dogs, like if I do the math, like it doesn't pen out for me. And for a lot of people who I've met who are also on the platform, because this they have like a forum where meetups happen and get
Yeah.
organized. And I helped organize a meetup in Portland, Oregon last autumn. And the rest of the people there mostly did dogs. And they're like, I'm thinking about quitting. I'm trying to figure out something else.
Uh,
And they
yeah.
thought I was like living the cake life, but by just doing cats. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think it'd be really cool to house sit. I've done it a few times. I've mostly babysat. And I didn't say baby, I mean they were tweens. But
that's still a lot of work.
it is a lot of work because you have to come up with games to play, and you have to come up with things that are interesting, and you have to actually go outside and do things, which is not my mo. Um, and yeah, it's a lot of imagination.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm good at imagination, but I don't want to do it all the time. I had to do it for a full weekend, like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and by the end, I was like, this was not worth $100. Like, you needed to pay me much more
Yeah.
$100 for this that just occurred. You just got free labor, basically.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think that's cool that you use it for your housing. So you're in one of the houses right now.
Yeah. So I'm in Washington, D.C. right now.
Okay.
And I've known the guy who lives here for a long time. And in fact, it started out as a business relationship, and we've since become friends. I still actually do some consulting for him, but the primary reason is I'm taking care of Tuxie, and he just got back from a multi-week trip.
Okay.
And so like what's behind me is part of his hobbies. These aren't not classic like rebuilding classic RC cars is not my hobby.
Right.
But this is in his basement. And so I bring with me my like I have a keyboard. I can lift this up, I think, a little bit. Like I have a my keyboard over here, and like I have a mixer
Wow.
or a looper, and so I make some music, as I think you know.
Yeah.
Um, and so I that is in the back of my car.
So you drive to all these places.
Yeah.
They pay gas.
So I drive an EV,
Okay.
so it's close to close to free, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. How do you do and like you're going from DC to Seattle basically? Do you have to map out your journey then?
Yeah. So I've taken my car coast to coast, my electric vehicle, including like the far end of Canada. So
Right.
not Newfoundland, but at the end of Nova Scotia. So the car's been through 5 time zones,
Wow.
um, both coasts. Um, and there are parts of the US that you really do have to work and plan out, especially like in Wyoming, North Dakota. Those are
Mhm.
pretty difficult states, even still today, to reliably have confidence that you're going to be able to charge at
Right.
the time that you want. But if you're going through like Indiana and Ohio, for example, you just end up at a lot of Walmarts,
Okay.
because Electrify America, which is one of the providers of high speed charging, they have a deal with Walmart, as well as like Simon malls. So like a lot of outlet malls and a lot of shopping centers,
Mm-hmm.
because they have a lot of parking lot space to
Right.
lease. And so there are times where I've been on road trips. This has happened many times where I will get to a Walmart, plug the car in, and it takes a half hour. So then I'll just walk around the Walmart,
Okay, there you go.
get my steps in for a half
Yeah,
hour,
you're
get back in
driving
the
the whole
car,
time. Yeah.
drive another 200 miles, get to the next Walmart, do the same thing. And then it gets really weird because so many Walmarts look the same. Like they feels like you're in a loop. It's like Groundhog Day, but every 3 hours.
3 hours, yeah. Cecilia House, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome to the zoo. Sit back, relax, enjoy the bamboo. Welcome on in. So okay, that's crazy. I've always wondered about the electric life. We have a random, and I'm talking about random, pole by the park that has a charger, and
Cool.
it's in a neighborhood at this park. It's not even like a well-known park, and I'm just like, okay, like I wonder who petitioned to put that there, because it's I had an Uber driver, I think it was Uber. Somebody said that I was like, "Oh wow, an electric car. Like how do you do this?" And they're like, "Well, I only let it get to a certain point. I don't let it get to close to empty, and that's when
Hmm.
I charge it." And she goes, "But there's no good chargers in Kansas City. Like they're working on it, but there's no real good chargers in Kansas City." And then I thought to myself, she must have passed that one. Like it's not I don't think it's that hard to find something in a major city, but maybe Kansas City is just awful at it. I don't know. Have you driven through Kansas City before?
I haven't driven through Kansas City recently, um, but the random charger in a park like that, those are super convenient if you're willing to leave your car there for many hours.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like they would call that a level 2 charger. So it um so when I was staying in New Jersey that I was talking about earlier, there was a park right near the river that had like hiking trails, but it also had a charger, and it was fantastic for me because I would plug the car in, and then I would just walk on the trail for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then it was like biking, and I had a folding bike, and I can just bike for a while, and I get back and my car's charged. And so that's where that's useful. But where the woman you're talking about might be complaining is in terms of fast chargers.
Oh, okay.
And there were like a lot of mid-sized cities and like larger than mid-sized, because Kansas City is kind of a, I don't even know, it's because it's between a mid-sized and a large city.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there might only be like 2 or 3 really good fast charging stations in the whole metropolitan area.
Oh wow.
I mean, I could look it up on a map, but
Right.
like it's one of those things that's changing pretty rapidly. Um, but
Because we have
she
a
just
Tesla selling. What am I trying to say? Uh, sorry.
supercharger maybe.
No, like Tesla selling, like
Oh, like a dealership.
dealership. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there we have a Tesla dealership like right there. So I'm thinking they have chargers in their parking lot, obviously.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking, okay, there's got to be some hidden around here because we can't just have a Tesla dealership without having chargers around the town, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Um, yeah, my favorite site, I know we're digressing from Wikipedia here,
no,
but like,
that's the point. It's just a
um,
topic holder.
yeah, but plugshare.com is my favorite app and my favorite web service in terms of finding where chargers are in a given spot. Um, and you can filter it for the kinds of, like if you have a Tesla, you can only use a certain plug. Like if you use any other car, you can use a standard plug, but some of them might have a Tesla adapter. And so you
Okay.
can kind of plug in the kinds of outlets that you want, the kinds of chargers you want, and then you have a map that shows you where they all are. So the one that's in that park near you that you talked about, I can all but guarantee that that's on the map.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. That's so cool. Well, wow. So, I mean, it's funny because you do this house sitting, but you also travel so often. And so I find it
Yeah.
interesting how it's just such a stationary travel lifestyle. Like it's a mixture of both. I think it's a happy medium. Well, I can't say it's a happy medium. You would have to say it's a happy medium, but it sounds
Yeah.
like a happy medium.
Yeah, and like when I get to a city, I prefer using the transit there. So like when I was in Chicago, I just kept my car parked because I just happened to get a great parking spot on the street. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh gosh, I can't move it because parking is super
Yeah.
high demand in that neighborhood. And then I would take bike share, I would take the L, I would take buses. Um, and then where I'm in DC, it's the location I am is not super convenient to metro, but like if I can connect to a bus to metro or if I can take the 15-minute walk to the metro station, like I'll use transit here all the time.
Okay.
Just because driving in cities kind of sucks sometimes. So
Yeah, I agree. I try to go around the inner city if I can.
yeah.
All right, cool. We've definitely exhausted this topic, but I've learned a lot of new things that I did not think of. Oh, I do want to ask you. I said the word pools. Have you ever swam in somebody else's pool?
I have.
That's awesome.
Um and sometimes there's hot tubs, like outdoor hot
Yes.
tubs.
And they're like, you have full access to all of that.
So it's it de- it depends. There's one time I turned it down because I didn't want to take care of it because if you
Oh.
have a hot tub, you have to make sure that the pH is balanced. You might have to put in some chemicals, and I was it was also in the middle of summer. And so I was like, am I really going to use a hot tub in the middle of summer? And I
Right.
was by myself too. It's just like I was not in a location where like people were going to come over and enjoy the hot tub with me. I was
Right,
just going
right.
to be like just
One
me
guy
out
in the hot
here.
tub. Yeah.
So in that case, I turned it down, and then they now I'm losing my words. Where you empty it, they emptied
Drained
the
it.
drained it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Before they left.
Okay. There you go. All right, cool. Oh, and one more question. Have you ever had to mow their lawn?
Yep. Um, there's been a couple times where it's just kind of part of the agreement. Um, and the way that I think of it usually is that it's exercise for me. Like I like taking a bunch of steps every day, and like if it's also pushing a lawnmower, it's fine.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's a good outlook.
And it's a unique experience in a way because like I only have to mow that lawn once or two times, and I'm never mowing that lawn again.
Right.
So
Right. Hello, mother of carp.
carp,
There you go. Carp, carp,
carp.
carp, carp. Okay. Let me look at my list here. I want to go to this one because I don't know what it is. Boop, boop. What is Advisory Neighborhood Commission?
Oh boy. Um. So yeah, this is a jump of topic. I'll start by talking about Washington D.C. and how it should be a state.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason it should be a state is because it has close to 700,000 residents. So the
Mm-hmm.
population is greater than like Vermont
Right.
and Wyoming. Um, but one of the consequences of not being a state is that it's an awkward government. So it's autonomous in a way where there was a Home Rule Act, which I think would be on the like I'm looking at the Wikipedia
Oh,
page for
yeah,
your
yeah.
screen.
Definitely
Yeah.
look at it.
So the Home Rule Act um, in many ways allows DC to write all of their own laws as if they were a state, but they procedurally all have to get approved by Congress, which is weird. So imagine like your state, um, all of the laws your local government, not local government, but your state government passes
Mm-hmm.
has to be approved by Congress before it can be enacted. So
Wow.
there's some not cool things about that. But anyway, getting to the neighborhood commission, we don't have a governor. We have a mayor for 700,000 people,
Wow.
and we have a council, but no, and that's the legislative branch, basically. Like there's no House of Representatives or a state house
Right.
or senators. Um, so it's a council, like a district council, or in other cities would be called a city council.
Right.
Um, and so for a lot of the local issues that happen, um, that might be done by a city council in a different state, it's put onto this advisory neighborhood commission and or the ANC.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it's like the level of government below the council in DC. And it's an awkward thing because it's unpaid, but it's elected like any other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's people have to run a campaign and be on the ballot and stuff like that. Um, and they handle advising on local zoning issues, like if neighborhoods want um a variance to the zoning to be able to build something taller or build something wider or to combine a couple lots together. The same thing with traffic changes. So like anytime that they might be removing parking to put in a protected bike lane or to expand a sidewalk or to put a
Right.
dedicated bus lane, um, anytime that there's a new liquor application.
Mm.
So anytime that there's any of these really hyper local things that happen, they go before the advisory neighborhood commission and they meet and generally pass a resolution, either supporting it or uh, writing some other type of language that doesn't support it.
Right.
And then the various district agencies generally are supposed to just agree with what the ANC says. That's not always the case.
Right.
In many cases, it's not, which is frustrating because you do all this work. Like, it's
Right.
anyway. What I'm getting to is I was elected to the ANC, and
Oh.
so I was a commissioner in DuPont for one term, which is 2 years. And it was a fascinating way to get to know all of your neighbors. Like
Yeah.
it's a point now where like I walked through my neighborhood the other weekend and like I kind of saw people dining at a cafe and I'm like, oh, and I'm like to my friend, like saying their names. Like these
Right.
are people I had to like, and you know, and then once you have a system of government like this, where you have people who are elected to represent very small numbers of people in a very dense area,
Mm-hmm.
um, you it just generates a ton of conversation and it with everybody. And people have like a connection to their government that they may not have in another city.
Interesting.
So it's kind of fascinating in that way. And I'm a really big believer in like some of the principles about what an advisory neighborhood commission does. Um, the the Honolulu in Honolulu, there's a neighborhood board system that operates the same way across the entire island of Oahu. Um, and so that there's pros and cons to that system too, and we could go down that rabbit hole maybe. Maybe you could go on your own, but like
Yeah.
but these kinds of systems of government, like I'm actually overall like a really big fan of because it helps local people interface with their government and connect with people in a way that just that feels just more neighborhoody. And it's not, and it's also elected by the people instead of like self-appointed. And what I mean by that is that sometimes you'll have neighborhoods where there will be like, oh, we're the citizens association and we represent these historic homes, or we represent the people who are against X, Y, and Z. And it's like those people are just not elected by the people.
Right.
And so then it gives the advisory neighborhood commission greater weight on issues because they're actually people who are elected by the people in a public ballot.
Wow.
Anyway, thanks for that. It's my soapbox on the
No,
ANC.
I love it. That's something I didn't even know about. Like, it wasn't even on my radar. Never even heard of it. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's honestly before I moved to DC, I was not aware of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And this is not, this is the best I know how to relate to it. Like, what do they call that? An HHA, or
like a homeowners
homeowners
association.
association. There we go. HOA. Is it similar to that in any way?
Um, I'm smiling because I have a punchline to that.
Yeah.
It's similar to that because a homeowners association represents um a group of homes that have either the same association or the same ownership. And so like it's smaller than a neighborhood, or it might be just one condo building, for example,
Right.
right? Which would have an HOA that kind of controls, and you vote people onto it, and some people might be like, we need to invest $50,000 on repairing this sign in front.
Right.
And then some other faction might be, we need to invest $50,000 on our water system, which is probably going to break in 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And so you have those kinds of homeowner association battles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's similar to that, but it's at a city level. So it impacts um, uh, renters and owners
Okay.
equally.
Okay.
It basically represents everybody who lives there, and
Okay.
like even if you're not registered to vote. Like
What's your punchline?
the punchline is when my term was completed with the Advisory Neighborhood Commission, my homeowners association pleaded that I join the board, and I became the vice president of my building
Oh my gosh.
afterwards.
Yes.
Much to like, I felt like I wanted to do it because like there was some stuff that needed to get done that I could help with. But at the end of the day, like I didn't want the time commitment.
Mm.
But I did it and it was good. And the same way that I got to know everybody in the neighborhood before, I've really got to know all the personalities in my building.
Really got to know. Do you find that the ANC existing lowers crime at all?
No,
Okay.
I wish I could say it does, but I yeah, I don't it's unfortunately the people who attend ANC meetings are like kind of disconnected from like I like it's not one of those things that like everybody shows up to meetings for. It's like one
Right.
of those things where you just kind of know somebody.
Right.
um
Oh, I wish
yeah,
there was a correlation. I understand what you're saying exactly. And I do wish there was a correlation, just like even with the HOA, like just basically saying, like, hey, we all look out for each other, but, my car still got stolen out of my driveway. So it doesn't matter that we have an HOA because crime still happens. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. I mean, sometimes with ANC meetings, we would have the police department provide a report.
oh,
Or police would show up, but that doesn't help with crime either. And it also kind of satisfies a part of the population who thinks that like being tough, having a stronger police force is going to automatically reduce crime,
crime,
right?
right?
And but as an and because of that, we would also have other speakers from other district departments that were working on different issues, like working with people who were experiencing homelessness, or working with people who were working on keeping kids in schools,
Oh, okay.
people who were working on uh, affordable housing solutions. And so, like, we would get a lot of people that would speak on there to kind of balance out a strictly police perspective, because
Yeah. Yeah.
that they have their own way of tackling things, and we wanted to,
Give alternatives.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, White, Gray, Black. Welcome on in. Um, Interesting. So you had mentioned Hawaii a lot. So let's go to Hawaii right now. Let's do it.
Whew. Yeah. So I had a client in Minnesota who moved to Hawaii, and I was really fortunate and lucky that he had flown me out there to work on a couple of ideas that he had, and they were not ideas that I felt would work. Um, but I was paid, so I helped flesh them out.
Right.
But I started that's when I started getting my head a little bit around like what is Hawaii? Because my context of Hawaii prior to then is that it was like a vacation space,
Right.
right? Like it's a tourist destination. Um, and I kind of had known in the back of my head that both the historical context of it being its own kingdom at one point,
Right.
and it also being a United States military base, like namely obviously Pearl Harbor, but
Right.
also there's many other bases that are in Hawaii as well. Um, but after spending some time there, I started realizing this is a really in the middle of nowhere, insular, very like secluded place. Like you
Yeah.
have to take a 4 hour flight to get anywhere else. It's depending on your metric, it's the most secluded place on the planet. Um, because it's it's a 4 hour, 5 hour flight to LA, or it's a 6 hour flight to Tokyo.
Right.
I mean, it's a four. I mean, you can kind of go to Alaska directly, I think. Um, but the other interesting thing to me about it was that when I started learning more, is that there's like this ingrained culture that outsiders are coming in to screw them over
Mm.
because it's true.
Yeah, I don't doubt it for one little second.
Because it's true. And um like if you go back to the days of the Hawaiian Kingdom, um the um as people started taking on businesses such the plantations and
Right.
you know making taking over the pineapple business and scaling that, and the sugarcane business and scaling that and such like that, and starting to see the tourism business
Mm-hmm.
and taking that over. Suddenly you have a kind of a bunch of white dudes in power that aren't really in power, and then worked on overthrowing the government, and then the United States turning it into a territory, and then eventually giving it statehood it was like 1940. It would be on the Wikipedia page,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
1940,
1959 admitted to the
1959.
Union.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I was confusing that with the bombing of Pearl Harbor, which was 1941.
Right.
And so that's another interesting thing to think about too, is that like this wasn't even a state
Right.
when that all happened, and there was already such a military buildup there. Guam went through a very similar thing, except for they never got statehood, and like half of that island is military.
Right.
um. Anyway, so that's like some background, and now here I'm moving to Hawaii and working with a client that wanted to make some transformational change to the electric system. Um, what has happened in Hawaii is at the time, more than 90% of the energy that was used to power homes and power businesses was burning oil, and
Ooh.
generally burning imported oil,
Ooh.
um, which is crazy. And so, you know, we were talking about cars before. You fill your car up with gas. You don't usually like you can't predict next week what the gas price is going to be, right?
Right.
But if you pay your own electricity bill, you have a pretty good idea what you're probably going to be paying,
Right.
right? In Hawaii, people would get hit with electric bills that would fluctuate so much, and it would be a surprise. And because it all like was related to the price of the global prices of oil. Um, and so my client, who ended up becoming the CEO of this company, and I ended up becoming the COO of it, was recognizing all of these natural resources that could be utilized in Hawaii to make renewable energy, primarily like geothermal, and expanding wind and offshore types of power, including geothermal and sea current power. I mean, we had
Right.
all sorts of stuff kind of on the table. And then we just started having a bunch of serious people, like heads of state government, community leaders on the Big Island, um, international investors, a
Mm.
former CIA director, um, people from the Clinton administration joining our team
Okay.
because they were like, okay, this makes sense. We need
Yeah.
to invest some money in these right ways, and it included actually taking over the electric utility. Um, so this was like an awkward and weird project that I worked on, and all that context I provided was something where we were super cognizant of like Hawaii's history, and now here's a bunch of people that are coming in to like say, hey, no, this is going to be the best thing, right?
Right.
And so we spent an incredible amount of resources working with local people, um, to get legitimate buy-in and to really understand what was happening, and really, and to get their perspective and their solutions, because there were already people who grew up there or have been living there forever,
Right.
who were already working on renewable energy ideas and stuff like that. And so we wanted to be like inclusive and bring people in. And um, anyway, long story short is that we ended up, um, there's articles out there. I won't go into it too much further about the
Yeah.
specifics, but like, we raised an absolute ton of money and had a bunch of stuff lined up. And when it came to actually buying out the utility, um, everything unraveled. And so the project kind of died, and which sucks in
Yeah.
one regard. But on the flip side, what happened is that we built so much public awareness about what was happening, and it was kind of like a what do you call it, like a frog in boiling water, um or the kettle, or like sitting the fire, like this is fine,
Yeah.
or this is what, or
Lighting lighting a fire under their asses kind of
right.
thing.
Well, it was they were living in a spot where like they thought that this was normal to have your energy prices be so high,
Right.
and they thought it was normal because it was, because it was a consequence of living in Hawaii in the first place.
Right.
And we challenged that and said, no, like this isn't
Not
right,
normal.
like
Yeah.
this is bad for the environment, first of all, and it's a consequence of the structure that's here in terms of how your electricity is being generated. So what happened afterwards is that the public was much more tuned to start pressuring their government
Mm.
to put in energy targets for renewable energy. And so like if I were to say, like, after all of this said and done, like I had like a finger on pushing the scale a little bit, was that Hawaii started creating more aggressive energy targets and pressuring the utility um to switch to more renewables and to divest from fossil fuels. And that they've actually shut down a plant. They're shutting down
Wow.
an independent power producer that was burning oil. So like it's pretty cool that that's happened. And the other funny thing about it is that after our project fizzled out, um, a different utility, I think they were Florida-based utility, was working on buying them out as well. They did everything correct that we screwed up on. And in terms of like engaging the community and getting local buy-in, they
Couldn't do it.
screwed up. And so they failed too.
Wow.
Um, so it's been, I don't know. So I ended up spending about 5-6 years there. And it was just such a fascinating place. Just it's really steeped in history. Um, and I ended up getting involved there. Like, and I I was talking about the advisory neighborhood commission before.
Mhm.
Like, I got involved with the neighborhood board system there too.
That's great. Good for you,
Um,
man. Good for you.
so and what a way to meet a lot of people and
Yeah.
to get involved. And then after I was elected, then I became a member of the Oahu Metropolitan uh, Transit, or what's it called, a group that works on like regional transportation issues. And then had like regular access to council members and state representatives and senators. And like so I like knew the mayor. I knew now Senator Brian Schatz.
Wow.
Because I have a picture of him like at a park eating a banana, like, because it's a small place, and
Yeah,
like, and if you take the time to like get to know people and care about what their perspectives are, you can get connected pretty quick.
that's great. Galloway, thank you so much for the tier 1 sub. I appreciate you. That's
I
crazy.
And if anybody watching this wants some Hawaii tips, like text me, like find me on Discord or find my
Yeah.
email. Like
Yeah.
happy to shoot you an email.
I definitely Hawaii's on my list. I just hear it's so expensive compared to other places that you can go that are tropical or whatever. I went to Aruba and I think I spent
Oh
less
wow.
than I would in Hawaii, but that's because my mom had a timeshare. So that's why I
Yeah.
chose Aruba. But it's beautiful. I want to go there. I want to see the history. I want to go to the other islands, not just Honolulu. And I think that's awesome that you were there. And I love that you say Hawaii. I know that's how it's supposed to be said, but I just love the way that I can hear the little chicka in it.
So what you're hearing is an Okina.
Okay.
And the Hawaiian language has I think 26, 27 characters total. And the Okina and this is one of the Wikipedia pages that I have a hand in editing.
Okay.
Is that little line that looks like an apostrophe, and you can see it when you're looking at ni hao and Kauai and Oahu and
Yeah.
Molokai and Lanai and Ko'olave. Like, you're hearing that Okina, which is a glottal stop. It's an unpronounced consonant that implies that there's a gap. And so, like in English, it's Hawaii without an Okina.
Right.
And so then you'll have like people on CNN and cable news saying Hawaii because they'll like have it as two syllables because
Right.
they'll just kind of push those two I's together because you don't see that Okina there.
Right.
But when you see an Okina, you know that there's a separation between the two I's. So Hawaii.
More you know. Gosh, you
Yeah.
are just a wealth of knowledge. This is an awesome interview. I'm so happy you're here.
So another funny thing, you were talking about how it's properly pronounced. Um, people, I could be conflating these two, but people who are more on the like on Kauai would use more of a V sound for that W.
Hawaii.
So it would be Hawaii.
Hawaii. Okay.
Hawaii. And like for me as a haole, aka like that's kind of pidgin for outsider or white person. To say Hawaii, just it's almost kind of seems pandering. So
Yeah.
I generally don't try to make myself sound like formal Hawaiian.
Right.
But it's a nuance that you have to kind of play with because you want to pronounce the names of things right and you want to pronounce people's names correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to sound like you are like using Hawaiian language to try to fit in because that just makes you really awkward.
Yeah, that's like if somebody came up to me and was like, "Yo, dog, I'm in New York now," and I'm like, "Get out, get
Right.
out of here,
Yeah.
Joyzy. That's not how we talk. Like, get out."
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I hate that. So I can relate. When people try to come in with a fake Jersey accent, I just send them out, kick them out. So,
Right.
you were born and raised in Washington D.C. or?
So I grew up in Minnesota.
Okay, so we'll get to that. Flag of Minnesota. Let's do that one.
L'Etoile du Nord, the Star of the North. And so I have a bunch of Minnesota friends. I mean, having lived there and such. And this is something that's new. Like this is the newest flag in North America.
Okay.
This flag. They just
2023. Adopted effective May 11th, 2024.
Right. So 11 days ago, was when this flag was raised at the state capitol. And it was a fascinating process watching um, the public debate this, because they opened it up to anybody to submit anything.
Wow.
And there was already ideas for the flag that have been presented for years, um, for decades. And I think some of those are in the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Um, and it was interesting because like one of like the leading things that like people were even flying it outside their house. Like there's an unofficial flag of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for example, that people just it's like a people's flag that everyone just kind of adopted. Yeah, you can see the North Star flag on the right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's been kind of an unofficial flag for a while. And it's not very common compared to like, sorry to go down this tangent twice, but in Milwaukee, the unofficial Milwaukee flag, um, it's Slurple pointing out, like, yeah, the official Milwaukee flag is bad. And so somebody created this other one, and there was some effort to try to get it passed in Milwaukee, but it just fell flat. And the same thing happened with that flag that was above this North Star flag in Minnesota. But that flag is partially responsible for helping get the process moving to actually have uh, an actual redesign process put into place. And so what you have on your screen there are like the 6 that were submitted. Um, or the 6 finalists that were chosen out of the ones that were submitted.
Right.
Um,
I like this one.
yeah, that was a really good one too because that one almost kind of looks like loons,
Yeah.
but it also looks kind of like waves,
Yeah, like
but it also kind of
water
looks like
and
a river
sky and wind
and
and water.
clouds.
Yeah. You got a lot
Yeah,
of interpretations to it.
right. Um, and there were a lot of like if you went to Reddit, like you would think that the the some of the leading candidates were ones that actually had loons with laser eyes shooting things.
Wow.
Because there were actually submissions related that had a loon on it with laser eyes. And so it kind of turned into like a very hyper local meme in a way
Oh,
where
I'm
just
sure.
there were just and it's funny because there was something else later. Like I think it was like the St. Paul Public Library or something adopted a version of the library card that had a loon on it with laser shooting
Laser
eyeballs.
eyes. Mother of Carp, have a good one.
Um, and anyway, one of the cool things about so you can see the one that the F1953, the one that's in the upper left
1953.
there,
Yeah.
is very similar to the final one.
Mm-hmm.
In the final one, a thing that they changed, a couple of things that they changed, um, was about the shape of the star.
Mm-hmm.
And you will never be able to unsee this after I show this to you.
Okay.
If you look at that star,
Mm-hmm.
it's the outline of 4 M's put together.
Oh, that's cool.
So you'll see like the M for Minnesota kind of like
Yeah.
made into a star.
Mm-hmm. That's really
Uh,
cool.
yeah. I thought that was clever too. And that's not a new thing for this flag. That's actually that's also I believe that's part of the shape of the rotunda in the Minnesota State Capitol.
Okay.
Um
That's wicked. And I noticed the color change too. I noticed that you're supposed to use different versions of like a navy blue. Where's the green come in? Because I see a lot of green in these, but no green in this.
I from all I know is that they just removed it. And they wanted to make it simple.
I mean, that's pretty simple. A star and 2 polygons.
Yeah, and the shape of that, the darker blue too, is representative of the shape of the state geographically as well.
Okay, yeah.
So where I grew up is like pretty close to where that point is.
Okay.
I grew up right near the St. Croix River, which is the border between Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Oh, all right. That's really cool. Like the
Yeah.
fact that the flag went up like 2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I know it's been a few days, but like,
Yeah,
if
2 minutes and 11 days. So
yeah,
you're close.
yeah.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, that's just crazy. And so does the winner, I mean, the winner gets their flag flown at the Capitol. Like, that's so cool. Can you imagine being that guy to be like, this star, this shape, this color, let's go. And they're like, yeah, we like that. That's good. And you're just like, I'm on a flag. Like, that's so cool to
Yeah.
commission it to the people.
Um, yeah, there's some stories like I remember listening to, I think it was with NPR, like Minnesota Public Radio did a interview. Uh, is it Andrew Precker? Um, who, yeah, that would be on Wikipedia,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Oh yeah, right there. Um, uh, and I need to go back and listen to it again, but like I remember at the time there was like this was when his design was being modified, and like there was like some he had some personal. This is secondhand, so
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I don't my memory might not be perfect on this, but like I felt like he was grappling with the fact that he thought like he got to his perfect version of it, and there was just so much change that was happening to it that was being put forth by the state emblems redesign commission,
Right.
which included all sorts of elected and appointed people. um and so like I think there was like an essence where he felt like wasn't really his vision,
Mm-hmm.
but my but at the end of the day, like um if I was him, I would definitely be very proud to see this flying on top of the Capitol.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's so cool. From sunrise
Yeah.
to sunset. Wow. I always thought that was such a unique topic that you put in, and now I know why. That's pretty sweet. Um, okay. This one we're gonna go to a dislike.
Oh no.
Well, we have to.
Oh no, what are we doing?
The Fairness Doctrine revocation.
Oh.
I figured we're talking about like states and
Yeah.
doctrines and
So I kind like this is compared to some of these other topics, this is one I know I do not know as much about, but I do know one main thing about this
okay.
is that this was something that like if you had a license to broadcast television, radio, um, and you had something that had differing opinions of fact, that you had some responsibility to share multiple perspectives. So you couldn't have what we have today where um, you can have a talk radio show that has a specific position that may actually not even be true.
Right.
It could be absolutely false and not hear the other side. And so when this and there was a big debate for decades, like does this violate the First Amendment? Like does this violate first freedom of
Freedom of
speech?
speech, yeah.
Right. Um and so this was over time eroded, and then during the Reagan administration uh like it basically was gutted. And then like it was formally like removed from everywhere with the rulemaking with the FCC in um the early 2000s, I think. And so what this did was really open the gate to allow people to lie to the public and without punishment.
And not
And
have to
like
say that they're lying.
and not have to declare that they're lying. Like, it's really what it is. It's like it allowed, like, when the government gives people licenses, there's rules around it, so people aren't so people aren't broadcasting on somebody else's frequency, for example, or there's rules where, like, you can't broadcast with such a power where you're you know crowding other people out. um there's also rules about vulgarity, for example. Like,
Right.
you can't there's like words, you know Carlin has that thing about
Yeah.
his word, the
Yeah.
words. And, like, um but the rule about um lying to people
Yeah.
effectively, which is not really what this was about. This was about making sure you show other perspective. Like, if it's a controversial topic, that you'd show the other
Right.
side. um there Anyway, there are some people who feel like the that this doctrine is really has enabled um the media landscape that we have today, where you can listen to something for an hour. And I listen to some talk radio, especially when I'm traveling. Like, if I'm in, going through West Virginia and Indiana, like, half the stations sometimes feel like it's like talk radio. And, like, it is like, compared to listening to public radio in cities,
Right.
like,
Right.
I feel like I'm hearing like a completely different reality. And that's what a lot of people in certain places hear.
Yeah.
That it, like, a reality that's not the same as a reality that I'm familiar with.
Right.
And so it's like, it's really kind of an interesting thing for me. And it's also one of the, like, the repeal of this overall, uh you asked me to find some stuff that I hate, and I still get bothered by this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I would be. I mean, I think that's fascinating that this existed and that this had an opportunity to possibly change the way that we hear our news. And then the term got coined fake news. And
right.
this is why, is because this didn't go through the way it was supposed to. And so I think that's fascinating. Um, so we could stop it on there because we did a great job of not making this political, I think. But that's
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
Oh, 100%. You are doing great. And I'm like, man, he's not even getting political at all. Like, they're doing great. Um so we're talking about places, we're talking about things. Let's go to Scottsville, Virginia.
Scottsville, Virginia. Um, so I got invited to cat sit in this town.
Mhm.
It's a town of about, let's look at, I'm
Yeah,
squinting
yeah,
here,
yeah.
566.
Oh my
I usually say
gosh.
550, but I'll trust Wikipedia. 566.
Okay.
Um, it's a town on the James River, which
Mm.
is river through Virginia.
Yeah.
And at one point, it was one of the furthest westernmost towns. Um, so it's a very old place,
Yeah.
and it had a lot of river traffic. Like, it was a place that was, because of its location on the James River, became a town. Um, when there was a number, I forget the order of all the stuff, but, like, uh, a combination of stuff that happened during the Civil War and a bunch of things being ripped up,
Mhm.
and the train, which goes along the river but doesn't anymore
Mm.
stop in Scottsville, has really squelched its growth. And it used to be the county seat of a very large county. And then that all went to Charlottesville, which is
Okay.
about a half hour north.
Right.
And so Charlottesville ended up becoming like the big city in the area. And Scottsville today is 550. Anyway, I got invited to cat sit down there, and I had a gap between two different stays. And so I was like, I just wanted to be kind of in this area. And it's like, I'll try something rural. for a
Yeah.
change,
Yeah.
a little bit more rural. Um, I was worried I was going to be bored. Um, and it's just one little street. You can see the Valley Street. There's Valley Street and Main Street, and they intersect, and most of the stuff's on Valley Street. Um, and at the end of the street, or in the town area, there's a brewery, the James River Brewery. Very small little microbrewery.
Okay.
And I went in there once, and there were people with pint glasses, like a regular, like just, I don't know, a boring pint glass,
Okay.
and people with steins, like a half-liter stein with a
Whoa.
handle. And I was
Yes.
like, so I inquired about it, and there's like a mug club. So for locals, they'll pay like $60 and get a mug, and it's stored behind the bar and has a number on it, and they can decorate it with stickers and stuff. And they get $1 off every beer. And because the half-liter stein is a little bit bigger than 16 fluid ounces, they get a little bit more beer each time too.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So then I'm like, I'm going to be cat sitting here for how long? A month and a half.
Right.
I'm like, screw it. I'll pay the $60 and I'll have a mug. I mean, what else am I doing here, right? That mug was the key to the city, the key to the town,
Oh.
because now everybody saw me with this mug and they're like, wait a second, I've seen you here before. What's your name? Like, it got to the point where like I was hanging out with people in the town now. Like I was a local. Like it just was um it opened so many doors. There was a woman who invited me up to play music bingo at a winery north of town, and bringing
Yes.
other friends. And then one of the bartenders, he also works at the campground across the street. He's like, yeah, come over, we're gonna have a campfire and drink beers. It's like, so it was like a really cool experience. One of the things I wanted to, because this is Wikipedia centric,
Yeah.
so if you scroll down a little bit, there's some interesting demographic information, or maybe up a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Demographics is here.
Um, one of the things I like about Wikipedia, I should put Wikipedia as one of my likes when you ask me for things I like. Just let's talk about Wikipedia for a
Let's
little bit.
Wikipedia.
Right. Is that Wikipedia in itself goes down some odd rabbit holes sometimes, and like one of them is demographic information. It's like you just have somebody who's like obsessed with census data who is just going to flesh out like 6 paragraphs, right?
Yes.
You
Yes.
go to any town and it's just like you can get all sorts of demographic information, even though you might have like a little bit about the history of this place.
Right.
So, but this is odd to me. If you look at the second, it says there's 256 households, out of which 24% had children. 12.9 had a female household with no husband present. And then if you go down, yeah, there you go. You highlighted exactly. That's an interesting call out, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yep.
Why do you think that is?
For every 100 females, there were 85 males. So there were more females than males. Is that what that's saying?
In a way that's pretty disproportionate to the national average.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Interesting.
Yeah. And this is a place in the South, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mentioned the brewery. On the other side of the town is a tavern where you'll see people wearing red Trump hats.
Mm-hmm.
Food's not as good.
Mm-hmm.
There was an article that went around about how one of the owners harassed a cat with hot water or something, like a stray cat. And there's different versions of that story.
Yeah.
I don't know all the details. So there's a little bit of there's a political diversity.
Interesting.
I'm definitely not going to say there's a ethnic diversity
Right,
here.
right.
But there's a political diversity in town. But there's also, um, I think, an undercurrent of very quiet LGBTQ
Ooh,
diversity.
okay.
But it's a place where it's not talked about a lot. Like if you're in a city and you're LGBTQ, like you have pride and you have establishments
Right.
that are that are gay friendly and LGBTQ friendly. And like in a place like Scottsville, I end up running into a lot of like I started to kind of like just keeping my eyes open and be like, oh yeah. Like, yeah. And people who don't and I'm just if I'm going to make an overgeneralization, there's just a lot of people who don't want to participate in the rainbow parade to I'm not being disparaging
Yeah,
in this regard, but like but for their personal identity are just, this is who I am and who I want to be, but I just want to live and work here. Like
right,
I don't want it to be part of my like outward identity.
right.
And I kind of like I'm making some assumptions and some generalizations, but like that there is that vibe in Scottsville.
Okay.
It's fascinating to me, and I
Yeah,
almost feel guilty talking about it because it feels like it's a secret.
yeah. There's this TV show going around where they're taking drag queens to small towns and trying to teach the towns how to be more accepting of drag culture and LGBTQ
Mhm.
culture and stuff like that. And the second you said that, I was like, I wonder what they would do if the drag queens came to town. Like, how people would react. Would it be a positive thing? Would it be a negative thing? Because you're telling me there's a divide. So I'm
Yep.
curious, like, it would if people would give up their um, uh I don't want to say in the closet because that's such a term, but like they're I I gotta think.
I
Give up
I
their secret, their you know what I'm saying, like what they do because they just want to work there and they don't want everybody to know their business kind of thing. They don't want to show their pride. If that they would then come out and feel more comfortable about doing that in their community.
yeah, I don't know, and it's not that there's a lot of people who aren't out, like, 'cause it's just that it's just not the topic, right?
Okay. Okay.
Um Well, I mean, I'm making a generalization,
Yeah.
and it's in the context of the fact that this is an odd call out on Wikipedia. Like, like it's
Yeah.
just a, you know, um, but to answer what you would a part of your question that you said previously in terms of how people would react, like I'm a member of their Facebook group, and it is a disaster.
Oh
Like
no.
because some of it is, like, good because 'cause it'll be, like, local shops saying, "Hey, we got this thing on sale," or, "Hey, we're gonna have these things at the farmer's market on Saturday," or, a lot of it is, like, "When is this restaurant gonna be open? Because it
Right.
has odd hours," or, like, what it's like or complaining about the, the Lion, the Lion, the grocery store there,
Yeah.
um, and but then there's, like, this undercurrent of, like, somebody who's just gonna come in and make, like, a Bud Light joke.
Oh
Kinda
gosh.
like you kinda nudge, nudge, you get like, "Does anyone still here drink Bud Light?" And it's just like, "Why are you posting this?"
Right.
Right? And, like, there's just a lot of crap like
Yeah.
that, unfortunately, that's in that, um and again, Facebook groups aren't representative, especially
Okay.
because this book group has something like close to like 4 or 5,000 people in it, and
Oh.
which is like 10 times the population of the town.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Um,
It's probably because of the brewery. People pass through
Perhaps.
and add them on Facebook or whatever, and that's how it starts.
Yeah. So there's another fascinating thing that I used Wikipedia for when I was here.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were monks who would show up at the brewery.
Ooh.
And these monks were going to a seminary that is just south of Scottsville. And this seminary, and I talked to a couple locals at the bar about this. They were they were walking me through like that this is like a very conservative um place where men were training to be priests effectively, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what seminaries are for, right? But it was so conservative that apparently they got kicked out of the Catholic Church for a while because there was like some or there was some split because the Catholic Church in Rome, the
Right.
Vatican were had some more progressive thing. Like maybe they were allowing women to be altar servers, let's say.
Right. Right.
Something like it was
Something
something
like
along those lines. I
that.
don't really
Yeah.
know. And anyway, but they're like, yeah, you should go to a service sometime because it is a trip. And then because they were customers of the James River Brewery, I was like, they can't be that crazy, right? Like we're drinking the same beer.
Right.
Um so so I identify as an atheist, but I
Mm-hmm.
was raised Catholic. Um, and I'm like, I'll go back to church just for the experience, especially for going to a seminary and it was like this beautiful place on the top of like this hilltop, in rural Virginia, and the whole mass was in Latin,
Oh my
and
God.
they would be like, and there was like a whole bunch of men, like it was like a seminary where it was like 20 up and coming priests were like going through the ceremony and the sacraments and like chanting in a round and like doing these chants. It was fascinating. Like it was like
Yeah.
it was like this is like super old school. And there were some of the monks who had like the haircut, like the where they had the
Oh.
hair around like a halo and it was
Yeah.
like shaved at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is crazy. This is because this is in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Just miles away is a place called I might have to look it up on Wikipedia. It's Yogaville.
Yogaville.
Yeah. Yeah, Yogaville, Virginia. Um which is like a multi-denominational like meditation retreat place. And I'm being like nice
Right.
when I say that because there are some people who say that historically it's been a cult. But the guy who started it was already had like such a popular movement. Um, so see the interfaith yoga community.
Yeah.
Click on that link.
This one right here.
Yeah. Because this is the deeper dive into this place.
Got it.
This guy had such a big movement that like he flew in on a helicopter and like gave like I believe like the opening remarks to Woodstock. Like, and so this area, like Buckingham County, Virginia, has like this weird monastery. And it's like the home of Yogaville, where people fly from all around the world to like meditate there and to take in the teachings of the leaders there. And they
Sick.
have like this amazing like lotus style, I don't know if you call it a temple.
Costing $2 million, financed through donations and tithes, dedicated to in 1986. The shrine is a centerpiece of Yogaville. The structure is shaped like a lotus flower, featuring gold leaf dome, and houses 12 altars representing Christian, Jewish, Hindu, Shinto, Tao, Buddhist, Islam, Sikha, Native American, and African
Sikh.
religions. Sikh, thank you. Blue neon tubes extend from each altar up along the spines of the vaulted ceiling. Wow.
Yeah. And like I drove through there and it was eerie. Like I drove down to the area, but it was closed. Like I couldn't actually get to the Lotus my last time that I was there. But I drove like on this dirt road and then like it was a little bit windy and this tree fell down right in front of my car.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
it blocked the road.
Oh my gosh.
And so like I'm in the street like, this is creepy. I've
Mm-hmm.
never had a tree fall in front of my car before,
Right.
especially at a location like this.
Right.
And especially after I was reading that there's like accusations historically of this being a cult.
Right. Sounds like a
And
cult.
how like there's like some pretty legitimate stories about women who went there like when they were like in their late teens, early 20s, and like just never returning back to life, like normal life
Mm,
and stuff like that.
yeah.
And then here's this tree falls in front of me, and I'm like picking up like I'm just in the middle of nowhere, moving trees from the side of off to the side of the road. Um, anyway, it's a fascinating place. I'm kind of
Yeah.
meandering on this, but like this whole area in this part of Virginia is pretty fascinating to me, and I'm going back there this July. So I'll
Oh
be there
yeah,
for a
you're
month,
gonna
and
have to report back. I'm gonna need to know some more information about this.
yeah. And the people who I stay for, I love them. I got to know them, and I met them through Trusted House Sitters, and they wanted me back,
Oh
and they
great.
have 5 cats.
Oh boy.
Most of them are outdoor,
Okay.
but and they're wonderful. So
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
thanks for letting me talk about
Oh
Scottsville.
my
I'm
gosh,
pretty
of
fond of that
course.
place.
Of course. We're gonna talk about Bulgaria because I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, Bulgaria. Um, do you remember the communications platform ICQ? I might be showing my age here. ICQ is kind of like AOL Instant Messenger, but older even.
It sounds so familiar, but I don't think I actually remember it. I just
Yeah.
probably have heard of it in passing.
Um, oh my God, Slurble, White Gray Black in the chat. They're like, yes, ICQ. So I was living in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I had a woman contact me out of the blue from Bulgaria, and because she had applied to a college in St. Paul, and she asked if I had any advice or it was something along those lines, and I had no clue. Like
Right.
um I skipped college. I entered the workforce early and went to a community college for a little bit and dropped out because I was already working full time.
Right.
Um, and so for somebody to be from Bulgaria asking me about applying to McAllister College, like I'm just this was a foreign thing to me.
Right.
But I was just like, wait a second, Bulgaria? Like why? Like where is this on the map?
Right.
Like I knew some European geography, but like I couldn't have been able to tell you that it bordered Greece at the time. Like I mean, or Romania. Like
Right.
because and then at the time there's Yugoslavia, and so like and that was changing, and like I don't know. Anyway, so she ultimately this woman, she never got accepted to this, but we just kept talking, and we would chat all the time because she was learning more about my life. I was learning about her life. I was like 20, I think, at the time, and she was like 17.
Okay.
And then she was when she was 18 and I was 21 or so, like she had a summer where she didn't have anything going on, and like I was like I had gone down this rabbit hole so deep. Like I was learning like the Cyrillic alphabet,
Wow.
and I was learning more about the language and the culture. Um and she wasn't going to come to the United States. So she's like, yeah, you can come here. And I'm like thinking to myself, what? That is nuts, right? And so I went to a travel agent, showing my age here,
No, yeah, I got that.
and kind of got a quote on a price round trip from Minneapolis through Frankfurt to Sofia and
Mhm.
back. And I'm like, yeah, I can afford this. Because again, I'm like, I've been in the workforce now for
Right.
a while. And while my peers at the time were accruing college debt.
I know it. I know it too well.
Yep, right. And so yeah, I planned on it. And then I was working with her. Her name is Donica, by the way. And I was working with her on like, I'm like, I should rent a car, right? Because you know,
Yeah.
I need a car. And I was trying to like, and some of the sites were kind of hard to navigate, and a lot of it was kind of in person-ish. You have to like have a local person call because there wasn't like the kind of infrastructure. And this was the year 2000, by the way.
Oh, okay.
So so I found some places that were going to rent a car to me for like over $1,000 for a couple weeks. And at the time, Donut was just like, that is crazy. You
Yeah.
can buy a car for that.
Wow.
Easy, right?
Wow.
So so we were working through some stuff. What happened was I ended up Western Unioning $600 US to her dad. My mom thought I was crazy,
Yeah.
right? I Western Union $600 because I was going to buy a car in Bulgaria for just 2 weeks and then I sell it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Like I'll whatever.
Right.
So what happened is that, and I thought I was like going to get like some Lada or Moskvich, some like really cheap Russian
Right.
car, like that would have a transmission that takes forever to figure out. And I get there, fly there, and I have a brand new Daewoo Tiku. It's a Korean car with like really thin doors. It's a I think it was technically a 4-seater, but it was really 2-seater.
Right.
It was a pretty boxy thing. And what happened is I was effectively the down payment for their new car. And I just got to drive it for 2 weeks and then
That's
give them back the
awesome.
keys.
Yeah.
So like I saved like half price on renting a car and I helped facilitate them getting a new car.
Aw.
So it was super cool. And I got to tour all over Bulgaria, and Bulgaria is like a fascinating country that is super under I'm losing my words again.
Appreciated?
Underappreciated or
yeah.
under I don't want to say
Valued.
undervalued, it's underrated. That's the word I'm trying to find. And because it's thick with history. Like we went to Rila Monastery, which is like deep in the mountains. It's just these gorgeous constructions, this monastery. I'm sure it's on the Wikipedia page somewhere.
Okay.
Rila, like Rila. It's spelled a little differently in
Rila
Bulgaria.
Massive.
Oh yeah. Rila is part of the mountain range there too.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a lot of old like Soviet history because the fall of communism had happened just 10 years prior, right around the same time that the USSR. There's Rila Monastery right there. That so yeah, I have a photo where I was standing like right there. And this is in the middle of nowhere. Like there's no town here. Like this is just a monastery in the mountains. The only other thing, there was a hotel that we stayed at. And locals get a certain price. If you're from Western Europe, it's actually, they double your price.
Of course they do.
If you're from the United States, it's triple. So I had to pay $9 instead of $3 for a hotel night.
Oh my gosh.
And that number might not be accurate, but it was. I know it was less than 10. Like it was in that range, and it was very comfortable place. But it's also on the ocean. So like there's a lot of seaside destinations, Burgos and the Sabre and Varna, if I recall. And just like nice sea kind of resortish areas. There's also kind of a place where you could just run into people and start talking to people, and they get invited to, so Donak and I, we would like be wandering around, and we ended up talking to these people who ran the place that we were staying, and then they invited us over for drinks later, and they were mixing red wine with Coke, which maybe sounds disgusting to some people, but like it was awesome. Like
yeah.
half red wine and half Coke, and we were up like all night. Like
that's awesome.
I got to meet a bunch of people that she was friends with there. So fast forward, she ended up getting accepted to a college in the United States the next year.
Yay.
Money is tight living in the United States after living in Bulgaria, and so she ended up like crashing in my dining room. I had a hide-a-bed in Minnesota that I put into my dining room and set up some curtains, and she
Aw.
stayed her first summer. She stayed um in my dining room, and then she completed college, and she ended up becoming extremely successful, and she ended up getting like um a great career. Ended up making more money than the two of us combined.
Yeah.
Has like a beautiful condo that is 4 times the size that she needs.
That's amazing.
And she's ended up becoming very successful to the point where she flies her parents now from Bulgaria. And at the time, they had never left,
Right.
right? And now she's traveling all around the world. She's flying her parents to the United States for visits, long-term visits, and it's super cool. And I got to see her again just a couple weeks ago.
That's so awesome. What a great story from ICQ, huh?
It started from ICQ.
I love it. I love stories that start from like apps or sites or whatever. I was in a, do you remember Pogo? The game, it's like a game website, and it's called Pogo, and they have things like card games and pool and all that stuff. And I was playing pool in there, and somebody was like, his name was Tyler, and we were talking, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm from New Jersey," and I was like, "That's so weird. I'm from New Jersey too." And with like, we didn't get into the nitty gritty. But we started talking then in instant messenger. We like leveled up, and then we started talking more in instant messenger. And then I was like, can we have a phone call? Okay, the moms have to talk first so that we know you're a real person. And then we started talking, and he was became my boyfriend for like 3 months, as it were. And yeah,
Awesome.
so like it's just funny how things progress by things like ICQ and AIM.
Yeah.
But that's great. Oh, lifelong friends. I love that. That's such a beautiful story. So what's going on with? I don't know what this is. What is SF0?
So, so SF0. I honestly don't even remember how I initially found out about it, but it was this. I remember it as being a collaborative production game. This Wikipedia says it's an alternate
Reality
reality
game.
game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, it was a system that was set up where you had teams that were like it kind of feels like, now that I look back at it, and this was like pre Harry Potter, but like Harry Potter would call them houses. Like it was
Right.
kind of like in that genre of schools because they had that kind of academic feel
Okay.
to it. Like you're just different schools, different teams, and they would have sometimes overlapping tasks, but different tasks. But the tasks were kind of countercultural, where you would be disrupting something in the public space. A lot of
Yeah.
times you'd be creating art, but it was all positive for the most part. Like it was like creating art, like it was reimagining what a muni station would be like, or like a bus stop, for example, or creating building something that creates music in a public space that normally doesn't have music.
Right. Yeah.
And then what you do is you would document it, and then other people would just give you votes
And how well you did the task.
on how well you did the task, right? But the votes were kind of meaningless. It was kind of like one of those games where like the points actually don't really matter. It's more about the process and
Right.
actually creating things. And I don't know. I just thought the whole concept was genius at the time. And there was like other tasks that I participated in where one of them was creating a mailbox and an address where one doesn't exist.
Oh.
And so I found in Minneapolis where somebody took like this old building that didn't have an address and created an address for it and installed a mailbox at a disused building and was able to like get the USPS to deliver mail to it. It was insane. Like I was really impressed by it.
Yeah.
but there was also kind of an evilish task, which was called ransom. I think it was something like ransom, where like you ransom something. So I stole the mailbox and produced a video. Like I had like a full like
Yeah.
black mask over my head and like had my voice distorted and like basically what I was saying, like you'll get this back, this mailbox put back, if you include me as a collaborator on the task. And so that was like some drama that I created for myself. But
Right.
anyway, so it was like a super fun thing. And then they decided that they're going to have an in-person event. And it was called The Journey to the End of the Night. And I'm like, I'll fly to San Francisco for this.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who lived there. And then I had a friend in Chicago who was also interested. Ed in Chicago was interested. And so we all flew to San Francisco and stayed at my friend's place. He had like a studio in Nob Hill. So like we were basically like on the floor and next to a
Right.
couch. It
Right.
was tiny. And I was like, Ed, if you come there with me, like I'll do anything this weekend in San Francisco, anywhere you guys want to go. But on Saturday, I'm doing this event no matter
Yeah.
what, and you guys can come with me if you want. And they decided they wanted to do it too. And what it was like a game across the entire city of San Francisco where you had to follow clues and talk to certain people to get the next clue to figure out the next thing to do. But
Oh.
like you can get tagged out. Like somebody can tap you and then suddenly you're out of the game and your job now is to tag other people. And you can use public transit, but you can't use taxis and you can't use
Right.
bikes.
So it's like The Amazing Race.
I think it's similar to I think it's similar to The Amazing Race, but
Yeah.
but this was, I think this might have been before it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Probably.
and they probably weren't the people who came up with the idea in the first place either, but
Yeah.
like it was a derivative of that type of game. But like in some places, like I'm on the west side of San Francisco holding like logs because I had to bring logs somewhere. And like people could be taking me out and things like this. And at the end of the game, it's like at nightfall, we're on Ocean Beach and all those logs are for a bonfire. And so like then we're like drinking wine until like 4 a.m. over bonfires, like on the ocean. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh
It
my
was so
gosh.
much fun. And so it was like, this had such an impact on my life. Just like having this type of event structured in a way to like meet people and to hang out with people and to like still play a game.
Yeah.
But my story doesn't compare to my friend Ed.
Oh, tell me about Ed.
Ed, well, okay. Well, the next day when we were on Ocean Beach, they're like, "Hey, we're going to this warehouse in Oakland to throw fire. Do you want to join us?" And we're like, "Yes."
Yeah. Yeah.
So we go to this like old warehouse area and this is where I learned how to throw fire. I haven't really used that skill since, but
Right.
like they were very nice and helpful and wanted to show these people from Chicago and Minnesota around. It was interesting, and like in one of the warehouses, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I recognized from pictures of Burning Man.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was the Venn diagram of Burning Man people at this group. I was like realizing there was overlap here, and and there was a woman in particular where I was just like, yeah, she's really cute and really nice, and like, I knew her from the game, but just parked that, and I went back to Minnesota.
Right.
My friend Ed fell in love with San Francisco. Like after that whole experience,
Yeah.
he moved there, got work there, and just moved his whole life
Wow.
there. And that woman I mentioned,
Yeah.
when they got married,
Yes.
I went to cat sit their house when they went on their honeymoon.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I love that story.
So yeah, and I was in San Francisco last autumn. I got to catch up with Ed. I hadn't seen him in many years. But it was, yeah, they've got a couple kids now, and
All because
It's
you were like, Ed, come with me. And Ed was like, yes.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated on like just the smallest decisions sometimes can just unlock so many different things.
Yeah.
Like I could have been pretty dismissive of this woman texting me in ICQ being like, "What's this weirdo doing?"
Right, right.
Right? And um yeah, so I feel like I've been very lucky to just continue to have a mindset of like, I'm going to try doing stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm going to and if somebody wants to get together with me, like
Let's go do stuff.
I'll see what I can do.
Right. Yeah, my little butterfly flaps its wings kind of scenario or situation that actually happened to me kind of thing was I went through a really bad breakup while I was graduating from my master's. And so I decided to move out to St. Louis. I moved
Mhm.
out to St. Louis. 18 days later, met Galvos.
Okay.
And 2 months later, got my cats. And while I was doing the job within the time that I met Galvos and had my cats, I had met this girl, Jen. And then I got fired from said job, but Jen and I kept in touch. So her and I kept in touch, and then I had my friend Tony who was out in California, and I was like, "Hey, he's moving back to Kansas City. He's single, you're single. Why don't you guys talk?" And so then he moves back to Kansas City. She's in St. Louis. She then moves to Kansas City to go be with him. Then we decide from St. Louis to go move to Kansas City to be back with our friends. And Jen was the
Nice.
one who did our ceremony for our wedding.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, it was really great. Like that whole friend circle, that whole my cats, my husband, like all wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for a stupid crappy breakup that I thought was going to end my life forever, right? You know how it goes.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's
that's
cool.
what we've got about 15 minutes here. What is danger hip top?
So the reason I knew Ed
What the
and
heck?
this other guy in San Francisco in the first place, the whole reason I knew them is because we were all part of the Danger Hip Top developer program.
Okay.
So what the Danger Hip Top was, or the T-Mobile Sidekick, as it was more commonly known in the US,
Got it.
was pretty much the first mainstream device that had data service that wasn't a BlackBerry.
Okay.
So the early days of BlackBerry, were very corporate, and you needed a company server basically for your BlackBerry to work.
Right.
And this is pre-smartphone era.
Mhm.
And the hip top was like the first like mainstream consumer device where they had a server for consumers to interface between the internet
Right.
and the phone, because the devices and the data networks at the time were not powerful enough to like just load a web page on your own.
Mhm.
So you needed an intermediary piece. Um, and it was an idea that came from, well, a group of people, but one of them namely was Andy Rubin, who was the head of this, and he had worked with I think it was Web TV beforehand. That might be on the Wikipedia page. And it was the same thing. It was because what they were trying to do prior to this was make televisions an internet device, but a television is not powerful enough to open a web page
Right.
because it's not a computer. And so, like, how can you get a device that is less expensive that has like an intermediary server that parses a web page and then delivers it in a format that would work for a television?
Mhm.
Anyway, that carried over to this mobile device. I loved it. And there was like two interesting things that the reason I really love bringing this up, and I have a hook at the end,
Mhm.
um, is that it still does a couple things better than any smartphone that's out there now. And one of them is the keyboard. The keyboard was arranged in such a way where you could use it like a physical keyboard on your laptop or a computer,
Mm-hmm.
where you don't have to look at the keys when you're typing. So imagine being able to walk down the street and I can make eye contact with you while I'm typing versus somebody going like this and
Mm-hmm.
like having to stop typing and look up, right? Um so it was like really efficient to be able to like I can read somebody's text message and then I can walk and look at where I'm going while I'm responding to that text message and then flip it and put it back into my pocket,
Right.
right? So that I really miss that. The other interesting thing is the menu key, which is where your head is on the stream. Um, that menu key at the bottom, it's similar to like a home button
Mm-hmm.
on or the home function now that they've removed home buttons on iPhones and on
Right.
Android phones. Um, where it goes back to the main menu or it goes back to the home screen. But it had a shortcut thing. So if I held menu I, it would just open the instant messenger. Menu W would open up the World Wide Web or the browser, or I
Right.
think it was, or maybe it was like menu B for browser. Or and like just to be able to like fluidly go to the application you want without having to go back to a menu and then find the app.
Mm-hmm.
I just miss that a lot. Anyway, it was a device that had its time,
Yeah.
and um, the company kind of fizzled out after the Hip Top 3. Um, and then the creator, like the initial creator, Andy, he so by the way, like this whole hip hop group that we were in, like, that were in the developer program, we would have meetups. Like we like a bunch of us met in Houston, Texas,
Oh,
and like hung
cool.
out. Like and we would like and then there was a guy in outside of Portland, Maine, who developed a website where people could upload photos taken with the device from the device and have it on a website.
Oh, very cool.
Which I mean, these days everyone has Instagram,
Right.
but like before Instagram, to be able to take something from your phone and use a data service to put it on a web page was
Mm-hmm.
novel.
Yep.
So it was like the first like moblog, as we called it, depending on what your definition is, it was the first blog in the world.
Yep.
And so a bunch of us who participated on that, like we would get, we would do meetups and stuff. The company knew us so well that when my mom died,
Mm.
they sent flowers to the funeral.
Oh.
Like I was like I remember my uncle saying, "Who is Danger? Who is Danger?"
Who's danger?
And then I was just like, I was thrown back. I'm like,
Yeah.
this company was paying so much attention
Mm.
to what their core users or like their influencer, I guess they would call it now,
Right.
were doing that. Like they cared and they would send us t-shirts and other stuff too. Anyway, so Andy, the main guy behind it, left and started a pretty secretive project. He just called the company Android, and like the one of the things that he was um working on was Wi-Fi inside memory cards. So like if you had a camera that you had a memory card, you would get home and it would automatically connect to your Wi-Fi and upload all your photos. Like
Okay.
it was so there was project like that was kind of leaked as one of the projects, but like there was other secret projects. And Google oddly bought the company out, like just bought everything, all the IP and him.
Yeah.
Um, and nobody knew what it was about for like, I think well over a year or 2 years.
Wow.
Then Google came out with a smartphone and called it Android, the name of Andy Rubin's company.
Wow.
And so so what you're seeing here is like the early days
Of Android.
before it later turned into Android once the
Wow.
people and the brains behind it. Now, I do want to couch that there is some controversy with Andy Rubin that happened much, much later.
Mm-hmm.
That I just want to acknowledge that I'm not talking him up as a completely up and up person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So I just want to make sure that I acknowledge that
Okay.
there was some later controversy about him that is not great.
Mm.
Um, but the facts still remain though that he's and this baby of his the sidekick was the precursor to the Android phone.
Yeah, I had a Envy and an
Okay.
Envy, and so I had the basically the it's a version of this, but it was Verizon based, I think. And so, um, but in class, I would be able to T9 word my way through I mean,
Oh
having
yeah.
a conversation here, a conversation down here, full conversation going on, and nobody knew. I never got caught with my phone in class. Literally never. And my texts were like pristine. So
Mm-hmm.
I like brushed my shoulders off. Like I loved
Yep.
the button phones. And as soon as we went to non-button phones, I was like, thanks, I hate it. So I got a BlackBerry in college because
Oh yeah.
I was like I have to have buttons again. But then I ended up getting a iPod Touch, and I was like, all right, maybe I can get on with this iPhone thing, and then I got an iPhone, and now here we are. But yeah, that's I miss my Envy. I miss being able to
Yeah.
T9 word my way. I tried the T9 word. I still have my Envy, right? It's in the other room.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, I still have my Envy. I still have my Motorola flip phone with a camera in it. I still have
Nice.
all of it, right?
Nice.
And
Yeah.
one of the things I was like trying to show my friend who's 22 what this phone does and how T9 word works. And I was like, oh my God, I'm struggling so hard. Like I'm trying to get it back with muscle memory. And it's like, no, you know how to type on a keyboard and texting, and that is it. I miss T9 word.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I had some phone at one point where like instead of hitting a key multiple times,
Mm-hmm.
like it because the number 4 would represent
Right.
3 different letters, right?
Right.
Where you would type in the numbers where the letters were and it would try to predict what word you were spelling.
Yeah.
Like is that was part of like
That
a
was
version
part of
of
the
T9?
T9. Yeah, so that's how I type so fast is because I knew that I'd watched my phone long enough that I knew that if I typed HA for the word have, that have was most likely to come up, and I just hit
Right.
space and have would. So it was the first time of autocorrect, and that type of feature.
That's a
So
good point. Yeah.
yeah. So we
Oh, those
have
were the
like
days.
almost no minutes left, but we have to talk about the secret word on the stream. It is the secret word, and you have it on your list, and that is pizza.
Oh
So
my gosh.
you've traveled all over,
Yeah.
and I know the answer is not New York, New Jersey. You told me it was some random place. Is it New York, New Jersey?
But you might have to I'll let you finish because I
Okay.
don't know what the question is. I might
Okay,
be being
where is the
presumptuous.
best pizza? And my answer is New York, New Jersey. But for some reason, I thought you had said it was like this random small town in like middle America or something. You think it's New York, Jersey?
I would say it's people from New York would say New York. People from New Jersey would say New York, New Jersey.
Yeah, it's true.
Right?
Right.
And 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 you guys aren't wrong because New Jersey, especially near like in Jersey City, Newark, and along the
Sure.
Jersey Shore,
Mm-hmm.
and then even if you count like even the some of the styles that are in Trenton,
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, like I would say New York, New Jersey is probably the best pizza region in the world.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
like I feel like you need that validation,
I
baby, right?
do because people are
But
like, I'll eat Pizza Hut, it's fine. And I'm like, you don't understand.
no. And Portland is a close Portland, Oregon is a
Okay.
close second. And there are some people who think Portland is better.
Yeah,
And
I've heard Portland.
um and then obviously like Naples, Italy.
Oh, of course.
So Naples, Italy is a great pizza place, but like the level of creativity and exploration that happens in New York and in Portland, Oregon,
Hmm.
um, you don't get that level in Italy.
Right. Yeah. You get kind of the same formula, but different. Like my favorite pizza. Okay, we'll talk about pizza
Yeah,
toppings. Toppings. My favorite pizza is when the meatballs are cut into pepperoni style, and so they're not like lumps on top. They're literally like flat pepperoni ham looking pieces all across the pizza, and maybe some onions if I'm feeling adventurous. But for the most part, a meatball pie is like the oh my god, that is my favorite thing in the whole wide world. All right, what's yours?
so I'll answer that question in a sideways way because there is a theory, and I don't think it's a scientific theory. It's just some people pizza writers
Mm-hmm.
talk about it, and I forget the name of the theory, but it was started by Adam, who was I think it was started by Adam, who was the editor of Slice, which used to be a blog, which ended up merging with Serious Eats. He became the editor of Serious Eats for a while. But the theory boils down to how pizza you grew up with or your favorite like earlier memory of great pizza
Mm-hmm.
is like is what every other pizza for the rest of your life consciously or subconsciously gets compared to,
Absolutely.
right?
100%.
And so for me, like that was Carboni's pizza in Oak Park Heights, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a tavern style thin, like a hard crusty, not crusty, but crispy crust
Mm-hmm.
and pretty oily,
Mm-hmm.
like like a proportion of cheese that might be twice that of the crust,
Mm-hmm.
and like just a little bit of sauce underneath that, and pretty oily. Like it's this kind of pizza is popular all over the Midwest, and there's different versions of it in Milwaukee, and Chicago says this is their Chicago style. Like there's deep dish, but there's also Chicago style,
Right.
right? Which is more of what I just described. And then it even goes down to places like where you live. But that has been kind of like, I just always love going back to that pizza, even though like I've turned into a little bit of a snob and really like when people are doing super creative things with dough and like having like really high hydration dough that they'll ferment for 72 hours and use like secret sourdough starter to like pull out just a whole
Array of
wide
flavors.
set of flavors,
Yeah.
and with a crust that is sour but also sweet but also salty, but not too much on those ends.
Mm-hmm.
But and then also in texture, something that's crispy but not hard, but
Right.
not too
Soft.
malleable, and
Right.
something that you can pick up and hold and it's sturdy. Like and to be able to like balance all of those things with a dough that is basically 70% water, and to be able to replicate that at scale, like I think that's where my mind just goes.
And it goes into a brick oven or a metal oven, but a brick
Oh
oven
yeah,
if you get it
yeah,
good. You know what I mean? And you're just like, I worked at a pizza place for a while, but it was an Italian. Hey Chan, it was an Italian place, right? So you could
yeah.
also get subs and all that stuff, but the pizza was the main thing. Man, the amount of free pizza I got. But the pizza, you saw it on the shelf. You can get it by slice or by pie. You saw it on the shelf. It was the same.
Hmm.
The dough was the same, the pizza was the same. They just replicated the same type of pizza, and it was just it's an art. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy. So okay, I had to end on that because
uh,
not only am I
uh,
hungry, but also pizza is the secret word on the show. And when pizza gets talked about, and the Infozar will say this in my shout outs, and sometimes they'll talk about pizza. He ends that with sometimes they'll talk about pizza because I get very invested in pizza. Even though I don't eat it that often because I'm out in the Midwest and why would I? But anyway, you've been a fantastic guest.
This has been lovely. Thank you for having me on. This has been such a treat.
Oh, I'm so happy you enjoyed yourself. Yes, this has been a lot of fun. You are very knowledgeable. You are very like ingrained in American history. I don't know how much you realize that. Like all the technologies and all of the societies and all of the neighborhood stuff. And I mean, you are definitely recognized, and there's a reason people like you. So I hope you know that.
Oh,
Um,
that means a ton, and it's been a pleasure, and like it's been so much fun catching up with your streams and your VODs recently too, because I've seen you in some of the same communities that I'm in, and the amount of respect that you have just regarding the fact that you have such a like pretty cool concept, um, uh, and having Wikipedia be kind of like this carpet underneath
mhm.
your your orchestra of conversation is pretty cool.
Thank
So
you. Yeah, sometimes we use it, sometimes it's just the topic on the screen. It's just however the conversation flows, it's all based on the likes and dislikes.
mhm.
So okay, we are either going to go to, what do you want to go to? Mary Amber or your old dad?
Let's go to your old dad because I've had pizza with your old dad.
Oh my gosh, I am so
Yep.
jealous. Was it good pizza?
We went to his favorite place and it was pretty darn good.
That's amazing. Yeah, his interview was great. Unfortunately, the whole thing's muted.
I saw that. Like I saw that on YouTube and like his voice was gone.
I hate myself every day for that. It was such a good interview. Okay, anyway, this is the raid call. It's crappy, but we use it anyway. And thank you again, Saxton. And I don't know who's going to be on next week. I got to catch up. Mesa. Oh, ad break ends in 27 seconds. We didn't mute the ad break. All right, we're going on a mystery raid then. Here we go. 3,
Right.
2, 1, raid now.